Welcome to DarkFrame Stories. Tonight, we delve into the dark corners of true crime and psychological horror. The Butcher of Plainfield, Part 1, The Farm, The Silence, and the Seeds of Madness, Plainfield, Wisconsin. Population: under 700, a place where you leave your doors unlocked, wave at strangers, and gossip travels faster than mail. But in the 1950s, Plainfield would become infamous, not for its crops or its kindness, but for something monstrous lurking beneath the quiet. That monster was a man. His name was Edward Theodore Gein. To the world, he was just Ed. A shy, soft-spoken handyman who fixed things around town, helped neighbors without charging, and always seemed a little off, but harmless. Nobody knew the truth. Not yet. Childhood in the House of Fear Ed was born on August 27, 1906, to George and Augusta Gein. His father was an alcoholic, a weak, bitter man who couldn't hold a job or stand up to his wife. Augusta, on the other hand, was domineering, religious to the point of fanaticism, and obsessed with sin, punishment, and divine judgment. She hated the world. She hated men. And she especially hated women. To Augusta, every woman except herself was a whore. She drilled this into Ed and his older brother Henry every single day. Sex was evil. Desire was shameful. And women were the gateway to damnation. They lived on a desolate farmhouse miles from town. No electricity, no visitors, no friends. Just silence, Bibles, and discipline. When other boys played baseball or went to school dances, Ed read the Old Testament and helped his mother slaughter pigs. It wasn't childhood. It was indoctrination. And Ed worshipped her. To him, Augusta wasn't just his mother. She was God's voice on earth. The first death, Ed's father died in 1940. That left Ed, Augusta, and his older brother Henry to manage the farm. But Henry began pulling away from their mother's influence. He started dating, questioning, even criticizing Augusta. That didn't sit well with Ed. In May of 1944, a brush fire broke out near their property. Both brothers were seen fighting the fire, but only Ed returned. When police searched the area, Ed, miraculously, led them straight to Henry's corpse. The official cause of death was asphyxiation. But here's the thing. Henry's head showed signs of blunt trauma. No investigation, no autopsy. Just buried and forgotten. After that, it was just Ed and Augusta, but not for long. Alone with the dead. Augusta had a stroke later that year. Cared for her obsessively, refusing to leave her side. When she had a second stroke and died in December 1945, Ed was shattered, and something inside him snapped. He boarded up her room, kept it like a shrine. No one was allowed inside. The rest of the house slowly rotted around it. Dust, filth, decay, but Augusta's room remained untouched. From that point on, Ed lived in isolation. Just him and his fantasies. He began reading books on anatomy, Nazi experiments, grave robbing, and cannibalism. He dug into the local cemetery records. He knew when fresh bodies were buried. And then he started digging literally. The graveyard rituals at night, Ed would grab his shovel and head out to the Plainfield Cemetery. He wasn't just looking for jewelry or clothes. He wanted skin, faces, breasts, trophies. He later claimed he only robbed 9 graves. Investigators believed it was far more. He admitted to bringing home heads, organs, and skin carefully removed. He fashioned masks from real human faces. Nipples were sewn into belts. Skulls became soup bowls. He tanned human hides to make lampshades, chair coverings, and even a full-body woman suit. Why? Because Ed wanted to become his mother. Not metaphorically, literally. He would wear the skin, dance in the moonlight, and speak in her voice. He wanted to climb inside her power, to resurrect her, to become her. But grave robbing only went so far. Eventually, He needed fresh bodies. The first known victim, Mary Hogan, was a tough, no-nonsense tavern owner in Pine Grove. She ran a little roadside bar with a foul mouth and a cigarette always hanging from her lip. On December 8, 1954, she vanished. No forced entry, no struggle, just a blood trail leading out the door. The case went cold until 3 years later. When Ed Gein's house was finally searched, police found Mary's face in a paper bag, her skull in a box. Ed later told authorities, casually, "Oh, she's not missing. I've got her back at the house." He said it with a smile. The arrest of Ed Gein sent a shiver across every town in America. It wasn't just the nature of his crimes, it was how disturbingly ordinary he seemed. A quiet loner, polite even. But behind that awkward smile and blank stare was a mind warped by obsession, trauma, and years of isolation. Investigators searched every inch of the Gein farmhouse. What they found would scar them for life. Inside a dusty old bedroom sealed off from the rest of the house, they found the carefully preserved remains of Augusta Gein, Ed's mother. Not her body, but her presence. Her bed was made, her Bible sat untouched, and the curtains remained closed as they had for years. It was a shrine, untouched, holy in Ed's mind. But it was the other rooms that told the true story. Authorities discovered chairs upholstered with human skin, bowls made from skull caps, masks fashioned from the faces of women, a belt stitched together from severed nipples, gloves made from human hands. There was even a lampshade made from human flesh, pulled tight and tanned like leather. These weren't just trophies. They were pieces of a puzzle Ed's grotesque attempt to rebuild the one thing he lost, his mother. Part 2. The skin suit the world knew him now. Not just as Ed Gein, but as the butcher of Plainfield. But what chilled investigators wasn't just the murders. It was what Ed did with the bodies, and what he wanted to become. The skin suit dream, in the cold basement under his farmhouse, Ed Gein worked in silence. A surgeon's precision, a mortician's patience. He wasn't just mutilating bodies, he was crafting a second skin, woman-shaped, flesh-stitched. Why? Because Ed didn't just miss his mother, he wanted to be her. Or more accurately, he wanted to become a woman, step into her skin, relive the comfort and dominance Augusta once gave him. This wasn't sexual. It was psychological. A spiritual delusion turned into flesh. He told police flatly, "I made a suit so I could pretend to be her. Pretend she was still alive." He would wear it in secret. He'd place a rotting breastplate over his chest, stretch a woman's face over his own. A twisted costume. He'd shuffle through the halls of his dark house, as mother, rocking in her old chair, whispering, sometimes singing, and outside, no one suspected a thing. The night hunts. Ed didn't always dig up bodies. That was the myth. In truth, he started small grave robbing. He'd read obituaries, mark fresh burials, and under the cover of night, sneak into the local cemeteries with his shovel and burlap sacks. He only took women middle-aged, matronly ones, women who resembled Augusta. He was surgical, careful. Sometimes he'd only take the heads, sometimes just the torso, always with purpose. But eventually, that wasn't enough. From graves to murders, Mary Hogan was the first known murder. A tavern owner, loud, brash, and older. In Ed's mind, another version of his mother. Police found her face, just her face, nailed to a wooden board in Ed's kitchen. Her skull, used as a soup bowl. Then came Bernice Worden, an upright, church-going hardware store owner. The day she went missing, her register tape showed the last customer, Ed Gein. When police arrived at his home, they found Bernice's body in a shed, strung up like a deer, headless, gutted, bled out. Her heart in a plastic bag, her head in a box. A clean bullet hole between the eyes. That's when the story broke wide open. The broken mind after his arrest, Ed was deemed criminally insane. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, sexual psychosis, and severe dissociative identity issues. But at his core, experts said Ed wasn't evil, he was lost. A child arrested in emotional development. Someone so emotionally destroyed by his domineering mother that when she died, he had no compass, no self. The skin suit wasn't about lust. It wasn't even about power. It was about longing. He missed her. And so, he stitched her back together from the corpses of other women. Pop culture's monster. If this sounds familiar, it's because Ed Gein became the blueprint for decades of horror. Norman Bates in Psycho. Inspired by Gein. Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. Gein again. Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Directly drawn from Gein's crimes. But none of those characters truly captured the eerie quietness of the man himself. Ed wasn't loud. He wasn't dramatic. He was quiet, almost childlike, and that's what made him terrifying. Part 3. The Butcher's legacy. The courtroom was cold, not in temperature but in spirit. Reporters packed the benches. Locals watched wide-eyed. Gein shuffled into the courtroom in shackles, his expression unreadable, almost vacant. Doctors testified first. Words like schizophrenic, psychosis, grave-robbing compulsion floated through the air. They spoke of his delusions, his inability to grasp reality, his obsession with his mother. Their conclusion? Ed Gein was insane. Legally, clinically, totally detached from what normal people called right and wrong. The court agreed. Ed wasn't sent to prison. Instead, he was committed to Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. Years passed. He was quiet, cooperative. He spent his days reading, painting, or gardening. To staff, he was a curiosity. To the world, he became a myth. But here's the thing: what people didn't forget was the house. The cursed place where all those horrors had taken shape. Locals couldn't bear the thought of it standing. Eventually, it burned to the ground under mysterious circumstances. No one came forward. No one had to. Everyone understood. In 1984, Ed Gein died of respiratory failure after a long bout with cancer. He was buried beside his mother in Plainfield Cemetery. His grave for a time was unmarked. People kept stealing pieces of the headstone. But the story doesn't really end there. Legacy of horror. You see, Ed Gein didn't just shock America. He reshaped its nightmares. Norman Bates in Psycho. Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. All of them, in some way, owe their twisted DNA to Gein. Hollywood borrowed his crimes and rewrote them as slasher fantasies. Writers dissected him in books. True crime shows turned his life into a warning, a spectacle, a story with endless retellings. But the truth? The truth is sicker than fiction. This wasn't about chainsaws or horror movie masks. This was about a man so broken by loss, isolation, and obsession that he rebuilt reality around his grief. He didn't want to become a killer. He wanted to become his mother again. He wanted her voice, her touch, her warmth, so he stitched it together, piece by piece, body by body. And that's what makes Ed Gein so disturbing. He wasn't a monster who hid in shadows. He was the quiet man in the corner of the diner, the neighbor who fixed your fence, the guy who always said, "Yes, ma'am," and walked away. What this really means is, the true horror wasn't in the basement. It was in his mind.
Thank you for watching DarkFrame Stories. If this story chilled you, and, let's be honest, how could it not? Make sure to subscribe for more tales that walk the line between history and nightmare. Hit the bell icon so you never miss what lurks in the dark. Like, share, and tell us in the comments which true crime case should we uncover next? Until then, stay curious, stay cultured, and stay out of the cornfields of Plainfield.